Good evening, and welcome back to Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here in the Horror Metal channel. When I first started this channel, one of my first ever individual movie review was Fright Night from 1985, and I since redid that review recently, and because I sent a lot of those earlier videos to private because they sucked, and I'm going to redo all of those reviews, and so the second movie review I ever did was Return of the Living Dead, one of my favorite movies of all time. And so that one's private as well, so I'm going to go ahead and redo that review right now. So yes, that's right, this is a re-review of Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Oh yeah. Return of the Living Dead from 1985, the re-review. So yeah, what's the movie about? So basically, when a deadly chemical is accidentally unleashed in a medical supply warehouse, 3 medical supply workers get help from a cremator to burn its remains, but by doing so, the smoke from the ashes rises into the clouds and creates a rainstorm, which spreads the chemical through the town, and reanimates the dead in a local cemetery in which a group of punk rockers are just kind of hanging out. These reanimated corpses are hungry, and they're not vegetarians. Yeah, they're hungry for brains. And I think this movie is pretty much the one that started the whole zombies eating brains thing. So yeah, that's the basic premise. And yeah, not only is this my favorite zombie film, although it's close between this and Dawn of the Dead, the original from 1978. It's very close between those two. I think I'll go with this one by a hair, only because it's way more fun and entertaining. This movie is just a blast to watch. It's highly amusing, and when I first saw it, I just fell in love with it. Yeah, so it's one of my favorite horror movies in general, and probably my favorite zombie film, like I said. I don't think I've ever had as much fun with a movie ever than I had with this one. Yeah, when I first saw it, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, they really don't make them like this anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, this movie has everything you could want from a horror film, I think. Or at least a horror comedy, anyway. You know, kind of a campy, but very creepy feel to it, you know, very eerie, ominous setting, lots of scenes with graveyards, and I like the scenes in the medical supply warehouse as well. Yeah, lots of blood and gore, you know, really scary looking zombies. I always prefer the more rotted, more like decomposed zombies where you can see like exposed bones and eyeballs hanging out and just rotting flesh, and, you know, some of them are almost skeletal, and you have green skin. You know, as much as I love Romero's zombies, I do prefer zombies like the ones in Return of the Living Dead. You know, ones that look like they've been dead for a long time and actually rise out of a grave, as opposed to just hopping off a slab at the morgue. You know, recent dead versus ones that have been dead for many, many years. I definitely prefer the latter. Yeah, it's yeah, great looking zombies, really interesting, entertaining characters, and a great plot as well. Yeah, this it's a semi-sequel to Night of the Living Dead. If you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. It's loosely connected to that, which is weird, which is kind of odd. You know, hence the title, Return of the Living Dead. But I think this should be a favorite of any avid horror movie goer, and a must-have for gorehounds like me. Yeah, I never got into movies like Resident Evil and stuff like that. To me, this is how a zombie movie should be. You know, and yeah, I think Return of the Living Dead is it's definitely the best of all the 80s zombie movies. And I actually watched it in a cemetery one time. I had a portable DVD player. We brought the DVD and watched it. Me and a bunch of friends watched it in a really creepy old cemetery. The wrought iron thins, and it was a really dark, eerie, ominous, foggy night with mist on the ground, and you could hear, you know, it was during a full moon. You could hear wolves howling in the distance and owls hooting in the trees, and the wind was whistling through the dead trees. It was in October. Yeah, really, really cool, awesome setting to watch a zombie film. That was one of my favorite memories. But yeah, what else do I love about the film? Well, as I said, I love the characters, all the actors. It's weird because well, I guess the old guys, you call it Clu Gallagher, James Karen, and Don Calfa are actually my favorite characters. I think they're even cooler than the young characters, the punk rockers. I really like them too. Of course, Linnea Quigley, she's always good. She's a scream queen. She was in a lot of those '80s B movies. And she's always been a favorite of mine. And then of course, Tom Matthews from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. He's in it. He's my favorite of the younger characters. Then Miguel Nunez Jr., who was in Friday the 13th Part 5, as well as Mark Venturini, who was also in Friday the 13th Part 5. So we had quite a few Friday the 13th cast members in this movie as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah, they're all great. They're all really fun to watch. Yeah, I love all the characters. I could watch them, and even if it wasn't a horror movie, I would still really enjoy watching them, all their chemistry and all their scenes together. It was directed by the late Dan O'Bannon, who he didn't direct enough horror movies. I wish he would have done more for the genre. The story is by John Russo and Russ Striner and Rudolph J. Ritchie. But Dan O'Bannon wrote the screenplay, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I think it did start out. It was gonna originally be a straight up sequel to the Romero Dead movies, but they kind of changed it around to where now, according to this film, Night of the Living Dead is actually a movie that the characters are aware of, but it's based on true events, and this is kind of a sequel to those events, which we never actually really saw in a movie. Just one that was loosely based on those events. But yeah. Very entertaining movie. My favorite zombie film. Great directing, great cinematography, great, pretty good suspense, and some genuine scares here and there. Lots of laughs. It blends horror and humor very well, I think. Some really funny scenes and some really scary scenes to be found here. I love, the scenes of the partying teens in the graveyard. They kind of remind me of me and my friends from when we were in high school. Yeah, and I really like the older guys, too. I think they're even cooler, so I'd love to hang out with all of them. All these guys are great. Definitely pick up this Scream Factory Blu-ray if you want to add this to your collection. But yeah, guys, I think that basically sums it up. All I have to say is I freaking love this movie. It's highly entertaining. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I definitely suggest you check it out if you haven't already. But if you're watching this channel, I'm sure you're at least familiar with it. Yeah, that's Return of the Living Dead from 1985, directed by Dan O'Bannon. It was followed by a sequel, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which I've already reviewed on this channel. It was one of my older videos, but I didn't set that one to private, so you can still check it out. So for my full thoughts on Return of the Living Dead Part 2, check out that video. Yeah, it's a decent sequel. It's okay, but it doesn't live up to the original, for sure. The original's far better, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's got its moments. Tom Matthews and James Karen return, which is cool. And I think the actor who played the Tar Man, who is probably the most memorable zombie from the first movie, I think he plays the Tar Man again here, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, it's okay. But see, for my full thoughts, check out my review, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 from 1988. And then, yeah, like I said, that video hasn't been set to private like the review of the first one was, so it's still available for anybody to watch. There's also Return of the Living Dead Part 3, which I also reviewed. Return of the Living Dead 3 doesn't really have much to do with the series. The chemical trioxin 245 does reappear here, but it's not really like a typical zombie movie. It kind of takes a different direction. They could have called it something like Romeo and Juliet or something, pardon the Crypt Keeper pun. Because, yeah, it's not really a straight-up zombie movie. They could have called it something else, and it wouldn't really... it doesn't really have any connection with the other two movies. But it's not bad either. I kind of like it. It's underrated. And yeah, check out my review of that for more info. I did review that one as well, and that video isn't private. Then, of course, there's also Return of the Living Dead 4 and 5. These suck. Avoid them like the plague. The less said about these, the better. But yeah, alright, well, I think that about sums it up. My full thoughts on Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are about Return of the Living Dead in the comments below. Alright guys, thank you for watching Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and I think I might go watch this right now. By the way, this VHS has a slightly different soundtrack than the other versions on DVD and Blu-ray, so which is pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, I think we're gonna go watch it. Alright guys, I'm Hellhound, thank you for watching. Later.